This meeting is being recorded.
Shalom, shalom, everyone. This is Ayana, and I am a facilitator today, and this is the YHUHderek channel. Today, we are going to talk about the Feast of Dedication, differences between the two feasts. But first, as always, I would like to thank everyone who donated to the channel in the past month and a half or so since the last video. Thank you very, very much. I greatly appreciate your support and your donations. As you know, we do use your donations to help support the channel, buy media, buy software, buy things we need to continue with the videos. If you would like, we have two avenues for donations. The first one is PayPal, which you can see here, YHUHderek@mail.com. And then the second avenue is CashApp, which is $YHUHderek. Also, we do have a digital download page. It is at shoply.com/YHUHderek. And I just want to remind everyone to please don't forget to make any purchases from the shoply.com. As you all know, YHUHderek, there will be no more new videos after December 20th, and all of the downloads, including this next year's calendar, which I have circled here in yellow, that will all be shut down by December 20th. So please do not wait till the last minute. Once December 20th get here, this page will completely disappear. The YHUHderek channel on YouTube will remain, but there will be no new videos after that. So please make sure that you go get any downloads you want before December 20th. Thank you. All right, so let's get into it. We are going to talk about the Feast of Dedication. We're going to talk about the temple, and these are the subjects that we are going to talk about. The first one is the Yehudith word for dedication. We'll also talk about the two feasts of dedication. We'll talk about the similarities and the differences between the feasts. We'll also go over the Maccabee account of one of the dedication feasts, and then we'll talk about why the Feast of Dedication should actually be called a different name. So let's get started. All right, so the word dedication is the word Chanukah, all right, or as people know it today, Hanukkah, but it's not a hey, it's not a ha at the beginning, it's a kat. So it's Chanukah without the verb, without the conjugation. And it means, it's from H2597 and 98, a dedication, sacrifice, or an initiation. Also, the root word to Chanukah is Canuck, H2596, and it means to make narrow, to instruct, or to train. Also, it is Enoch's true name. Enoch is actually Canuck, and you can find that at H2585 through 2599. Also, in a couple of the occasions where the word dedicated was used in the verses that I'm going to talk about, the word Quadash was in there. That's H6942 through 44, and that means to purify, to clean, to dedicate, or to be sacred, or Quadush. Lastly, the word Tahar, H2889 through 93, is to shine, to be bright, and it also means to purify or to cleanse. So the two Feast of Dedications that I'm talking about, where the temple was dedicated to Yahuwah, the original dedication takes place with King Shalamah, which is Solomon, in the books of 1 Kings chapters 8 and 9 and 2 Chronicles chapters 5 through 7. So that's the first account. That's the original dedication of the temple. The second dedication takes place in the book of 1 Maccabees 4, verses 36 through 59. Lastly, you can find Yahusha in Herod's temple, not Solomon's temple, during the Feast of Dedication in Yahuchanan chapter 10, verse 22. There are also other dedications to the temple that you will find in Ezra 3, verses 5 and 6, and also in Nehemiah chapters 3 through 4 and chapters 8 through 9. So let's talk about the similarities. Both occasions, the dedication, the true dedication, the original one that Shalamah did, and then I can't even say it was the second one because Ezra and Nehemiah had dedicated, and then I do think Hezekiah did a dedication too. So let's just safely call this the fourth or fifth dedication of the temple. We'll talk about this in 1 Maccabees 4:59. I'm sorry, yeah, first Maccabees 4:36 through 59. All right, both occasions were 8 days long. You can find the verses there. Both occasions performed dedications for the altar of sacrifice. In the Maccabee account, they call it the altar of burnt offerings, but it's the same thing. And they each gave many sacrifices at the dedication. You can find those in those verses there, 2 Chronicles 7:9, 1 Maccabees 4:44 through 47. And then the last similarity is that all of Yasharal was in attendance at both feasts. You can find it again, 1 Maccabees 4:55 and 2 Chronicles 5:2 through 3. Now, let's talk about the differences. All right, King Shalamah's dedication was not a feast. It is not a yearly occurrence. It was a one-time occurrence because it was the first temple, and it was the initial dedication of that temple. On the other hand, the Maccabee account was made into a feast, and you can find that in 1 Maccabees 4, verse 55. Now, Shalamah's account is a true dedication because it was exclusively built for Yahuwah's use, and it was the first initial temple. You can find that 1 Kings 8:12 through 13. But both the Ezra and the Maccabee accounts was about repairing, in reference to the Ezra account, and in the Maccabees account, it was about cleansing Yahuwah's temple after enemies had violated the temple. You can find each Ezra chapter 3, 8 through 10, and then the Maccabees, 1 Maccabees 4:36 and verse 38. Shalamah originally made the altar of sacrifice out of bronze, but because there were so many sacrifices, he made another one. You can find that in 1 Kings 8:64, and then the Maccabees altar of sacrifice or altar of burnt offerings was made according to Yahuwah's commandments found in Exodus 20, verses 25 and 26. And if, just in case you don't know what that says, Yahuwah says, if you make an altar to me, you have to use stones that are not cut. If you do cut the stones, you will profane it. So that is what the account of Maccabees refers to. So now we talked about the dedication of the temple, which is the Shalamah account, and then the Feast of Dedication, which is currently called Hanukkah or Chanukah, is the Maccabee account. So why are those two accounts confusing? All right, so the account of Shalamah dedicating the temple is called Dedication of the Temple. I just said it. But the account in the Maccabees is Feast of Dedication. Now, if you look at those two terms, which I have in bold, you can see how easily one would be confused with the other as far as referring. So if you are not aware, someone could possibly think that that's the same thing because both have to do with the temple, both have to do with dedication, but they're not. So as stated in the last slide, the Maccabee and Ezra accounts of dedication were really about cleansing and purifying or repairing the temple to give it back to Yahuwah. The emphasis is on cleansing and purifying the temple after enemies had defiled it. The Ezra account was mostly about repairing the temple and the walls after they came back from, being exiled, right? But the Maccabee account is truly, truly about cleansing and purifying. So let's take a look at that account. All right. So then said Judas and his brethren, Behold, our enemies are discomforted. Let us go up and cleanse and dedicate the sanctuary. Upon this, all the hosts assembled themselves together and went up to Mount Zion. And when they saw the sanctuary desolate, and the altar profaned, and the gates burned up, and shrubs growing in the courts as in a forest, or in one of the mountains, yes, and the priests' chambers pulled down, they rent their clothes, rent means tore, they rent their clothes and made great lamentation and cast ashes upon their heads, and fell down flat to the ground upon their faces, and blew an alarm with the trumpets, and cried toward heaven. Then Judas, or Yehuda, appointed certain men to fight against those that were in the forest until he cleansed the sanctuary. So he chose priests of blameless conversation, such as had pleasure in the law, who cleanse the sanctuary and bear out the defiled stones into an uncleaned place. And when they consulted what to do with the altar of burnt offerings, which was profaned, they thought it best to pull it down, lest it should be a reproach to them, because the heathen had profaned it. Wherefore they pulled it down, and laid the stones up in the mountain of the temple in a convenient place, until there should come a prophet to show what should be done with them. Then they took whole stones according to the law, and built a new altar according to the former altar, and made up the sanctuary and the things that were within the temple, and hallowed the courts. They made Kadush vessels, and in the temple they brought the candlestick and the altar of burnt offerings and of incense and the table. And upon the altar they burnt incense, and the lamps that were upon the candlestick they lighted, that they may give light in the temple. Furthermore, they set loaves upon the table, and spread out the veils, and finished all the works which had they begun to make. Now, on the 25th day of the 9th month, which is called Caslu, which is the month Thashay, the 9th month. Caslu is a Aramaic Babylonian word. It's it starts with K. It's like Hisalu in Aramaic. That's where it comes from. In the 148th year, they rose up betimes being early in the morning, and offered sacrifice according to the law upon the new burnt altar of burnt offerings which they had made. Look at what time and what day the heathen had profaned it. Even in that was it dedicated with songs and citharns and harps and cymbals. Then all the people fell upon their faces, worshiping and praising Yahuwah of heaven. It originally says God, but we know what's meant, who had given them success. And so they kept the dedication of the altar 8 days, and offered burnt offerings with gladness, and sacrificed the sacrifice of deliverance and praise. They decked also the forefront of the temple with crowns of gold and with shields, and the gates and the chambers they renewed, and hanged doors on them. Thus there was a very great gladness among the people, for that the reproach of the heathen was put away. Moreover, Judas and his brethren, with the whole congregation of Yasharal, ordained that the days of the dedication of the altar should be kept in their season from year to year by a space of 8 days, from the 25th day of the month of Caslu, Thashay, with mirth and gladness. So, I'm going to go back. You see at the bottom, I have the words here. Every time there was a word cleanse or to clean or to purify, I put in red. Every time there was a word to dedicate, which is the word Chanukah, I did it in blue. So let's go back. All right. So cleanse 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, So 5 times for cleanse, I have 4, it should be 5. Now for dedicate, let's go back. There's 1, 2, 3 times for dedication. And then profane, I'm going back one more time. Profane, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the reason why I went through that number count is to show how many times that this passage about the Feast of Dedication, as it's called now, how many times cleaning, making things Qudush, making it so-called holy, how many times it was written. So it was 5 times for cleanse, and then the opposite of cleanse is to profane. 5 times for profane, and only 3 times for dedication. So I did all that to show that cleansing and purifying the temple was the main objective and is the main point of these passages. So the reason why I went through all that is to show that there should be some sort of name change, right? As shown in the Maccabee account, it's thoroughly about cleaning and purifying the temple when you count all of the times cleansing and profaning was mentioned. Because of this, and because of the confusion with the terms dedication of the temple, which is King Shalamah, and feast of dedication, which is the account we just read, I am suggesting that the feast of dedication be changed to Kag Tahar, which is the feast of purification. And that is mostly what was talked about in the Maccabee accounts. Cleanse, 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 make Qudush, cleanse, cleanse, cleanse. Hallowed, which is another word for holy, right? That's the one account where it was Quadash, which is one of the words I put at the beginning of this video, one of the YHUHderek words. I'm suggesting that Kag Tahar be the proper name, because Feast of Dedication, that's Feast of Chanukah, right? And then dedication of the temple is Chanukah, right? That's confusion, but it's just my suggestion. So there are other instances where the temple was cleansed, and I mentioned that. 2 Chronicles 29, 15, and 16, I believe that's Hezekiah, and then 2 Chronicles 34, 8. I can't remember which king that was, but if you want to take a look at those occasions too, the word tahar, cleansed, is also used in those 2 instances. All right, so I'm going to recap. We talked about how the Feast of Dedication is called Chanukah, right? Also, we talked about the dedication of the temple and the Feast of Dedication are very similar terms that can cause confusion. We talked about the similarities and the differences between those 2, right? We also read the Maccabee account, and we saw how many times cleansing and purifying was used. Lastly, I talked about how the dedication of the temple, that should actually be the real Chanukah, because that was the initial dedication of a brand new temple, right? That should be Chanukah or Chanukah, however you want to pronounce it. And that the Feast of Dedication that took place in 1 Maccabees chapter 4 should be called Kag Tahar, just to clear everything up and make sure that there's no confusion, because we know that confusion is not of Yahuwah. In addition, like the last note, if you do purchase next year's calendar, which is available at the shoply.com address /YHUHderek, next year's calendar, I will show Chanukah. I did put it on there because Yahusha was in the temple during the Feast of Dedication, or Kag Tahar, right? I do show that. I also have the word Tahar in front of Chanukah. And there's a special note at the very end, after the legend at the very end of the calendar, which is vastly different than this year's calendar, I do make a note about this whole video. And I also mention, I don't know if the Feast of Dedication posting in the community post is up or not, but I do talk about it also there too. So hopefully, I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear your opinions about changing the names. So the dedication of the temple, the Shalamah account should properly be Hanukkah or Chanukah, right? That's a more correct term for that. And then the Feast of Dedication that takes place in First Maccabees 4, that should be called Kag Tahar, just to clear up all of the confusion on the two terms that I stated earlier. Lastly, I want to go back because I didn't mention this. As you know, the Jewish religion, they talk about Hanukkah being the festival of lights. The festival of lights is Babylonian in origin. And I italicize that they may give light in the temple with a little note here at the bottom right-hand corner showing that that's probably the source of why they did that. Now, nowhere in the scripture that I read in First Maccabees does it talk about the lights lasting 8 days. It does say that they lit the menorah, right? So that they could give light in the temple, and then the entire Feast of Dedication or Kag Tahar is 8 days in length. So that's probably the source, but it's a stretch because this is the only mention of light in the temple in all these verses that I just read to you. So it's a very small thing, and they took that and they came up with the Festival of Lights. I want to state definitively, the Festival of Lights has nothing to do with the Feast of Dedication or Kag Tahar. Nothing to do with it. All right. So thank you very much. As always, if you'd like to contact me, you can contact me at YHUHderek@mail.com. Yes, the email will still be up even after I stop submitting videos. And I will answer them. It might take me longer, but I will answer them. That will still be available. The YHUHderek channel will still be up on YouTube. There just will no longer be any new videos. Once again, please shop at shopfully.com/YHUHderek to get your downloads. After December 20th, it will be deleted and I will not be giving out any. So fair warning, please. Thank you. May Yahuwah Baruch you and your family. May he Baruch all the workings of your hands. May he protect you in all your ways and in everywhere you go. And may he forgive you and your family of all of your sins. I say this in Yahuwah's name through Yahushua HaMashiach. Hallelujah and Shalom.